Cool. Thank you so much, Derek. Hello, everybody. I see we have lots of folks joining the summit today. I'm really excited to talk about Sam Venning. I was listening to some of his podcasts last night to prepare for this session, and he has lots of exciting things to say. One of the most notable thing is that he scaled a store from 0 to 12 million in 6 months, which is like crazy. And I'm super keen to talk about that. So before we start here, a quick word on myself. So I work with Phil. I'm the CEO of Gorgias. We are help desk for Shopify, and we have about 1,000 stores on Gorgias. Yeah, let's talk about the story of Y-commerce. So first of all, Sam, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what is Y-commerce?
Yeah, so my name's Sam. I'm from England originally, moved over to the States a few years ago. And I started Y Commerce in the middle of last year. And pretty much our goal long term is to become the P&G, the Procter and Gamble of kind of micro brands online. So we just want to try to build as many micro brands as we can that just deliver as much value to the end consumer.
Gotcha. And how many brands do you have so far?
We currently have 4 at the moment.
Gotcha. Okay, makes sense. Cool. So I heard some great stories about one of the an exchange semester, I think, in Germany when you got started with e-commerce. So can you tell us the story about how you got into this?
Yeah. So I was actually I studied marketing at school, and I did a study year abroad in Berlin. To be honest, I didn't know anything, right? Really, school's such a poor place to learn about online marketing. And I had a teacher who was actually doing his PhD, and he owned an agency. And he's like still to this day, one of the smartest guys I've ever met. And he was teaching us about SEO. And my mind was complete, I was just blown away. And so I took all of this guy's classes, every single one, even it was not even related to marketing. I just took it and I just wanted to learn from him. And he's the guy who just really piqued my interest. And so that's kind of when I started to get into digital marketing. And then when I ended up finishing school, I started it wasn't an agency. It was a terrible excuse of an agency, but it was just something to get experience, right? So I was doing that during school and then after. And then when I moved over to the States, I ended up starting at a startup where I became marketing manager. And then when I was doing that, when I would come home, this is kind of where e-com comes into it. What I would do is I would pretty much go home in the evenings, and then I would just make sales funnels online, right? Just more for fun, right? And I had no experience with e-commerce, right? I had lots of digital marketing experience, but zero with e-commerce. So I'd just go home, I'd make these funnels. I didn't even know what drop shipping was, none of that. It was as bad as it could get. And I did this for about 3 months. And, I just did it every single product. I basically use ClickFunnels, just make these sales funnels. And then over time, just started to get a little bit better at it. And then one day I did a makeup brush funnel. And I came home, I think it was running at $100 a day. I came home and it's made $600. And I was like, oh, holy shit. This is something this is legit. And so every day I would go to work, I would never look at anything, right? Because I didn't want the conflict of interest. And then I double my budgets, came home the next day and it made $1,200, right? And I was like, wow, this is serious. Fast forward 10 days, I got it to do $200,000 of revenue. I had no product, no customer service. It literally was just me, and it was a real shit show, right? I lost a bunch of money on it, but that's what made me realize. I was like, wow, I can actually do this. So then my journey started from okay, let's take what I've learned and try to make it more long-term. So I was trying to do this and trying to do it. My goal was to do it consistently for 3 months. If I could do it consistently for 3 months, I wasn't fluking it, right? A lot of people just leave their jobs and it's really high risk, especially, I live in San Francisco and it's super bloody expensive. So I had to be safe. And so ended up starting a store with a good friend and now mentor of mine. We don't work together anymore. And that ended up doing $1 million in its first 3 months. That was a makeup store. Again, all drop shipped, horrible customer experience, right? As always, because it takes too long to ship, the product's crap. And so fast forward to middle of last year, a good friend of mine reached out and was just like, look, let's work together. And so my stipulations for working together were, A, we need to get cash in the bank. B, we need to make sure the customer experience is good. So we started last year So I have now a very good friend. He's not really a business partner, but essentially we have a big fulfillment center in Shenzhen in China. So we still ship. We basically have like drop shipping on steroids now, but we ship from China within 6 to 8 days to the US, right? And it's all tracked. It's great for the customer. They don't even know it came from China. And so now we essentially have this drop shipping on steroids where we still test, but we test a lot slower. And we test fewer products, but we put more effort into it. We have an in-house videography team. It's looking back now to when I started, right, where I would just, like use whatever content I had. And now, we have like a full production team that creates content for us. We have a full fulfillment team, big customer service team. So yeah, in the space of now, 8 months, we have like just under 40 people on the team.
Gotcha. Okay. So you touched upon a few very interesting things. It seems at first you did like this, like a one-off dropshipping business that worked really well. But as we all know, like dropshipping is hard to make it something sustainable. So it seems like you have a few nuggets of wisdom here, like to make dropshipping work in the long run and to scale it to 7, 8 figure businesses. One of them is this fulfillment center. Like, do you have other techniques that you've discovered over time that helped you convert something from like drop shipping within 30, 40 days, bad customer experience, to a sustainable business?
Yeah. So it's harder to get started now than when I did, right? Just because it's harder with Facebook because of the customer satisfaction, which is a good thing, because before the customer experience was horrible, and in the long run, it would scare people from buying on the internet, right? Which none of us want. And so now you've got to think of the end consumer. If you're still using AliExpress to drop ship, that's fine, but get validation and then try to do something either by yourself, okay, or try to find someone who will source it. So one thing you can do as a rule of thumb, if you work, usually you'll have say 10 to 20 different sellers that you're using on AliExpress. If you have one that you find is fulfilling quick, just reach out to them. Hopefully their English is good, and ask to work with them privately. And then you can do that as well. So that's what I did right at the very start. It still wasn't great. And we ended up not working together in the long run. But again, anything you can do in the short run to help with the customer service and to make sure that the value is there for the customer is always going to help. Like, we're lucky in terms of our kind of fulfillment center, right? But it's a long way from just like starting to going to that end. The other thing you can do is try to think more high price, so higher ticket items, and then do lower volume, right? So that way you could technically go on, say, Alibaba, import the products yourself and do it yourself. It's horrible, but it's an alternative, right? I personally would try as much as you can to stay away from the drop shipping, because it's more of a headache now than it's worth. But we no longer use it, but I have a lot of friends who use it as validation. So they'll do the first 50 orders on AliExpress. Once they get validation, they'll then go and buy, say 5, 10, 20,000 products and then scale from there versus scaling on AliExpress because it's a nightmare.
Gotcha. And so you talked about so it seems like the customer experience is the pillar and that helps you like achieve success with a given store. So what are the elements that are important to you in the customer experience?
Honestly, full stack, right? From the ads. So we, for example, we have a teeth whitening company. And when we first started it, we were a lot more aggressive with our ads, right? Showing like insane transformations. But now like it has to be from the very start, right? And even now we can't run those ads anymore because Facebook just doesn't like it, right? It's a lot more strict on how aggressive you can be with direct response. So we have to try and hook the customers in a different way. So the whole kind of the whole spectrum, right? From when the customer first sees your ad to kind of, the very end, right? You just don't want to leave a bitter taste, especially online. It takes one customer to go in, and we've had it before, where a customer goes in, finds all of our ads and just spams them, right? As soon as they do that, like that's goodbye to your ROI today. And long-term, your CPMs will spike, right? Because Facebook knows that there's negative sentiment. So honestly, it's so important now to make sure that the customer like the lifetime is better. We burned through stores, so many stores over the 6 months where we tried to be aggressive, but in the long run, we just get hit with CPM spikes, where Facebook will pretty much just tax you, right? They will price you out of the market. Even if they don't ban your ad accounts, which they start to do now, like they will price you out of the market so you can't compete.
Gotcha. Okay. And so I assume like this seems to be something a bit familiar for store owners, is that at some point your CPM is going to go up. And so what to do when that happens? Like, do you consider the brand completely burnt, or like is there a way to recover from it and to adapt?
So this is what comes down to adding value for the customer, right? Like you can, for example, I know I did not coin this term. I don't know who did. I know Russell Brunson talks about it a lot, but whoever can pay the most for a customer wins, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're saying the skincare niche, the CPMs are like $50 for most people in the skincare niche. And so what you need to try and find a way to do is like, how do I keep that customer coming back, right? How do I offer so much value, i.e. like make sure my product doesn't suck? Does my product do what I'm saying it does? If it doesn't, they're not going to come back, right? We started by creating stores where we would make money on the first transaction, right? Big upsells, super aggressive upsells. And at the end of the day, it just pisses the customer off, leaves a bitter taste in their mouth, right? Even if you're super obvious with stuff, customers are generally never happy. And so you need to work out ways that you can long-term, how do you make the customer come back? So with our teeth whitening brand, we lose quite a lot of money up front, but we make it up over time on the back end, right? Like using email. And again, like our customer service team, they do a fantastic job upselling, right? Like it's one big spectrum. It's so different now from just running aggressive ads, and like the ways that you scale are gone, right? You'll just burn out. And the problem is, right, really, most people, what a lot of people's screenshots don't tell you is like the margins are thin, especially at the high end, right? When we're making that much money, the margins are thin. And the only way to really make those margins big is not through ads, right? The ad costs are going up year on year. So the only thing you can do is to increase your lifetime value of your customer.
Gotcha. And so let's talk about this lifetime value for a little bit. So say I'm a customer, I click on an ad, I buy your product. So at this point of time, you've lost some money. So what is the likelihood for some of your businesses that I'm going to buy again from your brand?
So the teeth whitening brand, we have a return customer rate of about 50%, which is—
Wow, 50, that's huge.
Yeah. For the drop shipping ones, zero, literally zero, right? So when we run them, even now we have like the quick shipping, it's about 15 to 20%. But most of the time, because there's such a disconnect between like the products you're offering, and it's always changing, so you're constantly kind of churning through the website. So personally, this is why we're trying to take a longer term view. So we use kind of this older school drop shipping mentality to help generate cash to float the business. So this is our kind of model. And then we use these brands with the long-term goal to exit. Okay. So they may not make any money for like 5 years, but I know after 5 years, they're going to be worth a hell of a load of money that we can then exit with. Right. So that's the idea. It's going to take us probably a couple of years with the teeth whitening brand to really get it to make some serious money. So it's slower growth, but we can afford for slower growth because we're making money and we're floating the company financially through like good quality drop shipping. That's kind of what I would call it, right? So we still run like all these random products that you see on Facebook, but we just do it, but we try to do it better, and we try not to be as aggressive. So our margins are a lot smaller, but generally the customers tend to be happier. We have less chargebacks. We have less BBB complaints.
Gotcha. Okay. So it seems you've built some expertise as launching those brands and like following a very like specific and successful process to do that. So can you walk us through like what are the steps you take when you want to launch a new brand?
Yeah. So with kind of real branding, there's usually like a six to 12 month development process. So we'll test an idea. So for teeth whitening, we just tested it on like a general drop shipping store, right? Mm-hmm. And then once we had validation and we could scale it. So last year we were spending like $100,000 a day on ads for teeth whitening, right? Like I'm crushing through it. And so we were like, okay, this is a great product, and it's an evergreen product as well, right? People are always going to want to keep whitening their teeth. And so we were like, okay, how can we now take this like seemingly average teeth whitening product and how can we take it to the next level? So we did a bunch of research, found what's already out there, and then we tried to understand, okay, now we understand what's out there. We had to develop our product. So again, we have literally somebody out in China. They will go and visit the factories for us, vet 5 to 10 different factories, see who already gets their products manufactured there. So that gives some credibility, making sure that the factory is FDA approved, basically all the legal loops, right? And then we would then look, okay, how can we take this? How can we make what we're doing way less aggressive, but how can we still be competitive? So with a lot
What do you mean by less aggressive?
So for example, right, with teeth whitening, you could literally, points last year, we were running ads. So, you know, as most people know, you have like 5 to 15 seconds to get the consumer's attention. So we were showing ads of people like literally painting their teeth white, right? To show the transformation because we had such a short amount of time and it worked insanely well. But the thing is, the results still work. They just take like 7 to 15 days. But people will get pissed, right? Which, and rightly so. Okay. And so what we had to do is be like, because we can't have that with a brand, because like we talk about, it leaves a bitter taste in a customer's mouth, even if the product is stellar. And so we had to find a way to make what we're doing less aggressive. So showing results over time, but what that does, that's going to lower your click-through rate. It's going to make your ad costs more expensive. And if you're relying on that to make money, chances are you're not going to make money.
Gotcha. Okay, so it seems you invest at first, like you invest only in the short term to prove the concept. Yeah. And once you have validation that the concept works, there is a second step, which is like building a brand that's going to last for the long run, but not be as stellar in terms of cash generation on the first few months.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. And, you know, we'll have a full website built out. We will, you know, we'll bring models in for, you know, everything is legit, you know, like no stock imagery, nothing like that, right? Like it's all done properly, but it's a big investment. You know, we invested about $250,000 into the teeth whitening brand, right? So it is a big investment. You can do it a lot cheaper, but, you know, we ordered a shitload of inventory because you get economies of scale. You know, we invested in really good quality models, you know, all in-house production, right? It takes a long time to do.
Gotcha. Okay. And so let's talk about that, because it seems like the product is core to the retention and the sustainability of your business. So how do you make great product pages that not only convert for the short run, but that create customers that are going to come back and buy again?
Yeah, honestly, it just comes down to value, right? So you need this kind of perfect storm of like a great quality ad, great copy, and then a good product page. So it's all about, especially if you're using Facebook, people aren't ready to buy, right? They don't, no one's on Facebook with their credit card out. So you have to capture their imagination. And so it just comes down to within the, you know, say 30, 40 seconds, maybe a minute that they're going to be on your landing page. Can you help them with any objections, right? So for example, you look at most of Apple's pages, they're very clean and very minimalist, right? Mm-hmm. Versus if I came out on the MacBook, people would have so many more questions because I don't have the brand equity, right? To kind of power through the purchase. So I would have to make sure I handle any objections, which is going to, you know, help propel them through the purchase cycle. And so, you know, making sure that you think about, you know, most product pages just fucking writing, right? A lot of people, especially now with millennials, are visual learners. So making sure like have things like GIFs that explain everything, right? Talk about how long does it take to ship, have testimonials on there, have reviews. So many people, like I go and look at their stores, they don't have any fucking reviews on there, right? Get reviews. We also have like, you know, we send tons of products to influencers. It's super easy, super cheap to do. Just find micro influencers, just send them free products and ask for a photo in return, right? It's not hard. And again, it gives us more ammunition. You can also use that in your retargeting, right? Because it shows, again, gives social proof, but like, get that on your product page, right? Get like a fake Instagram feed going at the bottom of your product page, showing people like using your product, get video reviews on there, right? Anything you can do to make the customer feel safe. Because what you have to remember, no one gives a shit about your brand because they don't know your brand. You're not Apple, right? Which I know in like Silicon Valley is like the big issue. Everyone fucking thinks they're the Apple of this or the Uber of that, right? You're not, because nobody knows your brand. So you have like 30 seconds to make an impression on a customer. And then if you've made a good enough impression, they're going to purchase. But for most people can get over a 3% conversion rate to cold traffic. they're doing a good job. So you still got 97 other people that you want to bring back. But if you didn't make a good enough impression on the first visit, your retargeting ads are going to be crap. They're just not.
Gotcha. Okay, makes sense. So it seems it's mostly focused on like I land on the page and you need to convince me right now. And so you like talk about the objections, talk about the product, the shipping times, and all that. Are you thinking of like telling the story of the brand as well, and like elaborate on like how the idea got created, like how you guys created the product, and so forth?
So I think long term, yes. Short term, no, because again, the customer doesn't care too much about the brand journey, right? They care about like, hey, these are my issues. I want them solved. And so, yes, in the long run, we could do that through email, right? But just like giving them that story, we're not at a place yet where we can invest like thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars into awareness campaigns that drive that. But over the long run, yeah, we want to tell them the brand story, and we want to create something that just adds value to their purchase.
Gotcha. And so how do you create this brand story? I'm curious, because like you kind of start from scratch, like you just launched this brand and pick a name, a product. And so how do you find a story to tell to customers? Because it seems you have to build it.
Yeah, it has to be built. Like I have no story, right? Like, and so usually what it comes down to, Ezra Firestone does a really good job of this with Boom. I know the co-founder of Boom recently passed away, but they have a really compelling story built around her versus if it's built around him, it doesn't make sense, right? It's like a skincare and cosmetics brand for older women. So, if you can find your champion to build that story around, go for it. If you can build it around yourself, go for it. But I would not recommend, if you're drop shipping, to build anything around yourself, because if people get angry, they'll come directly to you, right? Like, make sure your customer experience is stellar, and then you can, build things around yourself. And if you have a compelling story to tell it. I don't really, right? I can't really add much value, unfortunately, on my end.
Gotcha, but yeah, that makes sense. Like, it's probably like the hard part that folks need to figure out. And so like having an influencer who can tell their story, like someone that is your business partner, can be like a nice trick. Cool. Another thing I wanted to touch upon, like on this product page, so we can imagine the reviews, the testimonials, the Instagram carousel. You mentioned that a key piece of having this stellar customer experience was the customer support. And so obviously, since I co-founded like your customer service company, I'd love to talk about that a little bit. So do you have some tips around how to use customer support as a weapon to drive retention up, whether it's like using a live chat or anything else?
Yeah, so honestly, making sure that your response times are quick. I have so many people that leave it a week. Again, like, the customer's hot. Like, think of it like traffic, right? The quicker you can retarget it, the better your results are going to be. And so when a customer writes in, even if a customer is angry, there's always an opportunity to upsell, right? And so
I like the hustle.
That's what it's about, right? Like, again, you think about it this way: if you're losing money on your traffic, you've got to try and make money elsewhere. And what I found, especially in the last month, the human touch is absolutely everything, right? If people just feel like there's a human on the other end and not a fucking robot, that's the biggest weapon, right? People feel cared for and people feel listened to. The biggest issue, especially online, no one really cares about the customer after they purchased. And so coming in and making sure that the customer is happy, they just feel loved, is huge, okay? And again, one thing that we've managed to do is we can kind of do that at scale, right? So we have in the past, we've had, thousands of tickets coming in a week. And so you can create really, really fantastic macros. And this is actually where we use Gorgias really well, because we can have a huge customer service team for people that say their English isn't first rate, but we can make sure that they're using macros efficiently, and it just gives the customer some love. Right. And again, it gives us control over what's being said as well. So honestly, just making sure that the customer feels loved. If you have to jump on the phone with the customer, jump on the phone with them. We have a subscription product, and we pretty have about a 10% churn right away, where customers are, I'd like to cancel. As soon as we get them on the phone, or through live chat, we have like out of those 10 people, we saved 9 of them. So it's a 99.
Wow, 9 out of 10. That's incredible.
Yeah. So our churn rate goes from 10% down to 1%.
Gotcha. Okay, that's incredible. So I guess they need like this relationship with someone to trust the brand and like keep being a subscriber.
Especially when they don't know the brand, right? It's different with Apple because I know if I get bad customer service, again, it will affect me, but I know I will be looked after. I can just walk into an Apple store, right? Or I can speak to someone else. But usually what will happen, we've had it in the past where if a customer is not handled properly, they get really, really annoyed, right? Yep. And again, like they'll come back even more, like they'll rile themselves up. And if you leave it too long, like they will really rile themselves up, and then they'll go to the BBB, and then they'll say you're scamming them, right? And even though you just ignore them for like 3 days, right? That's it.
Gotcha. And so that's actually like a pretty impressive stat. And so I think there is Lee on the chat who's like, wow, a churn from 10 to 1%, as impressed as we are. So maybe tell us a little bit more about that. Like, what do you tell them on the phone?
So honestly, again, it just comes down to handling objections, right? So I myself, I've done so many of these phone calls, right? Because I want to make sure with the subscription offer we're running, like it's not pissing people off, right? It's just no point being super aggressive because again, it will just burn your brand. It might take 6 months, but again, it'll burn your brand so much that anytime you advertise, someone will comment and go, that's a scam, right? And so, I want to make sure that there's value on the front end. I want to make sure that the offer is compelling enough and that what we're offering on the back end is strong enough. But, I want to make sure that people fully understand. So when they get on the call, people will just write in like, I want to cancel, right? Not a problem. Just jump on the phone with them, give them a quick call. And all I'll literally do is explain to them exactly how it works. And by just doing that and hearing a human, it probably helps having an English accent, but just hearing like a human on the other end helps tremendously, right? Really, really does. And again, they can just ask questions and they all ask the same basic questions. And they're like, oh, okay, now I understand, right? And it's easy. And then the great thing is we have this feedback loop where anytime we do this, notes are taken. And then at the end of the week, it's always fed back to us. And then we make those changes to the landing page, to the follow-up emails, right? And then we find over time, the number of say churn emails or issue emails coming in maybe about a certain product just go down because we've already answered their question, right? Which then stops, our agents having to be as busy.
Yeah, that's super interesting because you see like so many stories of like, hey, go build your drop shipping store and like in 2 months, you're going to become a millionaire and have a Maserati. And like the story you are telling us is like, go invest some money at the beginning, like try to learn about the customer. And then it seems like it's an iterative process that you need to run over like months and months and sometimes years to like learn what is the customer reaction to your product and then like build this long-term brand. So I think like this is a super cool learning if you want to transition from like being new to e-commerce to building something sustainable, like learn about like your customers' objections, what they expect, how they react to your product.
100%. If anyone sees any videos about making money online, there's very few people in the industry that are very good at it. So like always take precautions, right? And also like it's never as good as it would seem, right? Like I mentioned, we did 12 million last year, right? In 6 months, and I still rent a house. I still have like a completely modest car, right? Because we keep all the money in the business. What people struggle to understand is if you want to scale, especially in e-commerce, because you have to buy the product, right? It's impossible to otherwise. It takes a lot of financial investment. So, if we want to grow next month, we have to put more money in than we've made. So we're always, like we're in a position now, we have cash in the bank, but it took us a long time to get here. And we pretty much had to have a float from the guy who was doing all of our fulfillment. At any one point, he's flaunting us like $500,000, which is he's basically a bank, right? Because the bank's not going to touch me because my business isn't old enough. I don't have the financials. So that's another thing, right? How do you scale your business? Most people struggle to grasp that concept, right? And just think it's like, oh, it's money in, money out. It's never that simple, especially the e-commerce. It gets complex, especially at these higher numbers. It's hard, really hard work.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's. I think we'll close on this note. So yeah, thank you so much for telling us your story. I think and thanks for being so authentic about like the different issues that you had and the process you followed to learn about your customers. So yeah, thanks a lot, Sam. If you guys have some questions on the chat, feel free to go for it. Otherwise, I'm going to hand it back over to Derek.
Perfect. Awesome, guys. I love it. And I do think that's the trend we're seeing, right, Roman, is moving from drop shipping to the digitally native vertical brands. So this is the story of you being, Sam, one of those pioneers of this transformation. If we're going to
One last thing on that actually, like you were saying in the introduction, is like, hey, we want to be the Procter & Gamble for like online commerce. And I'm not sure like Procter & Gamble does a good job at learning about their customers. So it seems like this is probably like a pretty strong edge that you have here.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And you're testing with customer development, whereas Procter & Gamble's testing with millions of dollars in product research and really boring market analyses and all of those things.
Yeah, I can find out in 3 days what they take a year and a half to find out.
Yeah, moving fast. I love it.
Thank you so much, Derek.
Awesome, gentlemen.